Hi, this is Balázs from Alpha Forever Modular, and this is AFNoding, session number 15. And in today's session we are going to build a simple compressor. It's not going to be too fancy. We are going to have four controls only: attack, release, ratio, and threshold. And compressors are pretty much voodoo. If you look up the net, you will find so many explanations on what they do and so many misleading informations. And they basically process amplitude. So they work like they have a wave shaper, which is a wave shaper part. This part is only reducing the dynamic range of a sound. It distorts it to hell, and it compares this distorted signal to the original signal, or at least to the original level of the signal. So basically it subtracts it and uses something that smooths this buzz to something that can be used to drive a gain reduction thing. So basically an amplifier, and the output is what we hear. It's a compressed signal. So basically we are going to build a compressor now, and we are going to use a VU meter. And this VU meter is a very handy tool, you will see. And in the end we are going to have a gain reduction thing, so we are going to have a gain in note here, because we are going to work with a stereo signal. And I set the volume to 0 and the modulation to the highest possible, because we will multiply the original signal with something. I create two inputs by pressing I above I1 and I2, and I move these to the side. So we have our audio inputs, and we can start to build the compressor now. First, for the envelope, I'm not going to use a stereo chain, so it's going to be mono inside. So I convert the thing to mono. And inside I will just add two inputs together and multiply them by 0.5, so we will never be too loud, and create the output. Fine. Input 1, input 2. Alright. And now I'm going to convert these to some logarithmic scale, so I create a into dB node. And why I'm not using only the converter, you will see soon. Actually now, because I'm going to use the absolute value of the input signal, so negative values will be turned into positive, and I convert it like this, from linear to decibel scale, and here we go. Done. So we prepared our signal to be fed into the wave shaper. So we are going to create the shaper. We will have an input signal, and this is the part where we will have the threshold, and the part where we will have the ratio. So the threshold and the ratio will determine the work of the wave shaper, and we are going to compare the input against the threshold. And if the input is higher than the threshold, then we will output some value that is added to the threshold. So because if we are above the threshold, our minimum value should be the threshold. So and I think this will make sense if you take a look at it, but this is basically a simple thing. And then what we are going to do is to subtract the threshold from the input. Like this. I move this lower. And we will add these to the output soon, to the addition, but we will multiply it with a value. So we are going to multiply it with the ratio, but we need to, this way it would be too linear, so we would have to define the ratio between 0 and 1, and this is not the way people used to do it. So we are going to use the reciprocal, and this is going to be the thing that everyone is used to, like this way 1 is going to be 1-to-1 ratio, and input 2 will mean 1-to-2 and stuff like this. I hope this makes sense. And this is not the most beautiful node tree I've ever built, but it gets the job done. I create a con here, and maybe it will turn to be something that I'm not ashamed of. Yeah, this is something that explains what happens inside pretty well. And if we are lower than the threshold, then we just simply output the input and create the output. And this is our wave shaper. So we can feed in the input, and we can create the two controls, threshold and ratio. Ratio should be between 1 and, let's say, I don't know, 40. And the threshold should be between 0 and, let's say, minus 60. And I make them pretty much exponential like that. So you see, we are halfway and it's only minus 2. This is something that is pretty convenient for me. And now we will need to create the envelope follower phase. But first we need to subtract the output of the shaper from the original value. And now we can create our envelope follower. We could create an envelope follower with dedicated knobs, and then it would be more consistent, but this way it's more simple to do. And yeah, what we need is to take the negative of this value and convert it to linear. And we can plug this into that modulation. And this is all nice, but what we still can do is to use the VU meter. I connect this threshold to M11, which is marker 1, marker channel 1, first marker, both channels of the VU meter. Oh, this was a LED. I wanted to create a cone here. So both channels of the VU meter have two markers, and they can be used to things like this. So now you see, I can show where the threshold is, and we can also show where the level of compression applied. And that's going to be look like these two guys there. And I create a cone here again. it there. I move the ratio knob so we won't have to heavy distortion, and I align these guys like this, and this should do it. I think we are ready with our simple compressor. I've created this small beat in Machine, and I'm gonna play it now. This compressor is on the group, so it's not on one channel only, it's on the group. So let's take a listen. Okay, I think I see what the problem is. The inputs are going through the gain-in node now. This will be fine. Yeah, gain-in was not even connected. Now it is. Okay, this was a mistake, and let's start it again. Threshold to 0, this to something like 2-ish, and let's go. So yeah, this is the way the compressor works, and it's a really simple compressor, but quality-wise it's pretty much fine. So you can find similar ones in, let's say, Adobe Audition or software like, I don't know, even Ableton Live's compressor is comparable, but that's a bit more complex by default. In Machine you don't have a compressor of this setup, and sometimes I even miss it because this is pretty easy to use, and the markers help a lot to know where the compressor will kick in, and the fact that we can show compression is pretty nice. At least I think so, and I hope you will have fun with it. We also have a preset that's similar to this, and there's one more preset that is a more extended, a more complex compressor in Alpha Forever. It has soft clipping and stuff. This doesn't have, but in most of the cases this does the job well. So I hope you had fun, and I hope you found this episode interesting, and I wish you happy noding, and subscribe to this channel, and bye bye.